This is World Cultures, Unit 6, and today we're going to be talking about Central America. Now, the geography is very similar to that of southern Mexico. You do have a range of volcanic mountains that do create a cooler, higher elevation, but the most of the landscape and all of the landscape that is of the lower elevation is going to be a tropical rainforest. This is hot, humid, and about like what you would imagine. All of that rain does create, for a surprisingly small strip of land, as you can see on the map, a lot of rivers that bisect the isthmus that is all of Central America. The largest resource is that rainforest. Ecotourists come for the thrill of the jungle. You have the Mayan ruins. Companies come in and they cut down the rainforest for lumber. They use the space for farming and for harvesting. But most people are really subsistence farmers, and subsistence is where you make food that you need to live, and that's it. So they aren't farming and then selling off the extra. They're farming what they can eat, and then maybe if they have a little bit here or there, they'll trade with their neighbors. The Panama Canal is one of the major traffic lanes for the Western Hemisphere, and you can see a picture of it there. You can see the stepped locks that I was telling you about in class. It actually goes up in elevation and then back down with a pretty ingenious system. And a lot of goods from Asia go through there and through the Panama Canal on their way towards Texas coast to Europe and other major ports. The history of Central America is also similar to Mexicans. The Mayan Empire did include northern Central America. They didn't understand our invisible boundaries that we put down today. There's a lot of Mayan ruins, including Tikal, that you see there in the top left. It has the highest temple of 212 feet. And there's also lots of very famous pyramids found throughout the rainforest. The Spanish then colonized most of Central America, with the exception of Belize, where the British colonized. They forced the Native Americans to work on plantations and mostly did bad things to them. After independence, most of the countries went through periods of dictatorship and civil war until the current period where they have a larger amount of stability. Half the people live in the rural countryside, so most of the people live in the rainforests, living subsistently. Most people are Roman Catholic Christians and they speak Spanish, but there is a large Native American culture, much larger than the majority of Mexicans, which are more modernized. This culture dates pre-Spanish colonization. There's over 21 different Native American languages, including several that directly relate to the original Mayans. Their way of life and even some of their religions predate the Spanish colonization. The largest celebration throughout Central America is Carnival, a festival that you will find in variations throughout Latin America. But it is a Christian holiday of partying and festivities before Lent. Lent is a time in which you give up something, in which a person normally abstains, refuses to partake in partying. And so Carnival is that time period right before Lent where everyone just kind of goes wild and gets it out of their system. Baseball and soccer are the major sports. And then that brings us to government. The governments are all currently democratic republics, but this status is relatively new and tentative, and that means that it could easily change. Currently, the elected president of Nicaragua was at one time a dictator of Nicaragua, so people are unsure of whether or not he will attempt to make it a dictatorship again. Nicaragua is most famous because it was once a communist dictatorship controlled by a group called the Sandinistas, and the American government actively attempted to overthrow that government through the use of rebels within the country called Contras. Costa Rica is probably one of the richest and most stable of the governments, and you can see their current president down there in the bottom. While Guatemala is one of the largest, it's also one of the most poor. And then Belize, of course, is a commonwealth of Britain, similar to Canada. So technically, the Queen does still show up from time to time, but it is a democracy, a parliamentary democracy. And it is the least populated.